As we all already know, Legend of Slime is full of glitches, and I've had a few comments asking me how I got my traits from this to this, all the way back to this, without spending millions of trait points. Well, you came to the right place. This method is in the realm of glitches, so if you're not interested in those, this is probably not the video for you. But after Legend of Slime decided to change the trait meta in back-to-back updates, I felt like this was necessary to provide and share to the viewers. Since in one of our earlier videos, I recommended that we all focus our efforts on getting 2 companion traits alongside 3 attack traits. This is because that combination would provide you the highest amount of damage after the astrology update, but that was until the developers felt like changing up how the constellation bonuses for Exhausted Worker operated. So after a week of the apparent new trait meta, we were forced to revert back, which isn't at all fair, since rerolling traits is beyond painful, and getting trait points in the first place is difficult as is. And we all know this is especially true if you are a free-to-play player. Anyways, let's get started with the method. The best way to do this is using an emulator. I personally use BlueStacks, but you can choose to use other emulators like Nox and LD Player. But out of all the emulators available, BlueStacks is the one I have actual trust with, especially while being on my computer to use. And for your convenience, I will have a link to the emulator down below for you to download. Essentially, the emulator acts like a virtual Android device. It's doing exactly what the name describes, emulating an Android phone for you to use on your PC. And I'll explain why this is important. You can download Legend of Slime and log into your account as normal. Once you are in and have Legend of Slime loaded up, go ahead and turn off the Wi-Fi on the device that you have the emulator running on. Not the emulator itself, but your actual device. So for your PC, if you're on a Windows device, you would go to your network settings and turn off Wi-Fi, as I show here. You should also make sure it isn't connected via Ethernet as well. Essentially, we want to ensure that your device is completely offline while you do this. Now, after getting all this set up and finished, you'll want to go into your traits and just start re-rolling as normal. At this point, you can either wait until your trait points deplete to 0, or wait until you find your desired trait, or waiting until you get this no data connection pop-up, which I'll show you momentarily. Now I'll go over what to do for each of the following scenarios if you happen to deplete your trait points before getting the trait that you want, or in this case, if you get the error pop-up where Legend of Slime cannot connect to the destination host, you'll want to wait for the re-rolling to finish. This is to ensure nothing good will be missed while the traits are still re-rolling, since a good trait can appear during this pop-up period. If you find you didn't get a trait during that period, go ahead and press the multi-instance button on the emulator, which is the icon with the 3 boxes stacked up on top of each other. You can easily make an instance by pressing the button at the bottom left of the page, or by copying the instance you already have. You can copy the instance by hitting the clone instance button, which are just the 2 squares on top of each other. I won't go into the tech support aspect of this for the sake of a speedy explanation, so if you have questions about this method, just comment below and I'll try to answer. But it should be fairly self-explanatory to do. We want a second instance because it acts like a second device. These multi-instances are necessary for this method of the glitch to work. There are other methods which we describe in the Discord server, which you can join, linked in the comment and description box below. But once you have that second instance set up, go ahead and start it and boot up Legend of Slime on that instance, and then you'll want to stop your original instance, which will just be the first emulator that you opened up. After the game is loaded up on the second instance, hopefully I haven't lost you so far, just make sure that your Wi-Fi is loaded back up after you again have closed the first instance. So on the second instance, you want to load up Legend of Slime, make sure your Wi-Fi and Ethernet are connected, and then load back up to your trait page. And I'm sure you can notice what just happened here. We did not consume any trait points, and our last trait is still saved. That means we're able to continue re-rolling until we get our desired trait or traits, or until the connection pop-up comes up again, which we discussed earlier. If that happens, we just restart the process as we described. Now you're definitely wondering what happens if we find the desired trait. Well, I could go into the details of how cloud saves work in Legend of Slime, but that's not the purpose of this video. You can either just leave your game open for a minute after reconnecting your Wi-Fi or Ethernet. You then go to the emulator home screen and then back to the game, and it should force the game to sync to the cloud. If that's too complicated for you, just go into the daily event and fight and defeat the Giant Newbie event boss. This will force the game to sync once you defeat the boss, and if for some reason you can't do that as well, just go ahead and do a 500 gem normal summon on either gear, companions, or skills. This will also cause your game to sync, which will force the game to save the new traits that you got. Now, some of you might not have access to an emulator. The only other way I can think of doing this would be to use two devices. This way you would swap between either of them, loading the game up before the game syncs to the cloud, which I believe happens in 30-second intervals, or you could physically unplug your Wi-Fi router, essentially replicating what we're doing with the emulators, which is honestly a tad silly, but it is a method to use if emulators aren't available to you. And then by doing this, you load the game up on the other device, forcing it to sync to the cloud by using any of the above methods that we mentioned, which will cause your other device's game save to be overridden, because this can't be done on a single device, since the moment you exit the game, Legend of Slime has the tendency to save over everything within the client, even though it isn't connected to the cloud. So the moment you load the game back up, you'll have used all your trait points already. So again, this method isn't ideal. That is, unless you have two devices and you're willing to cut off your internet source. Because if you do try to tab out of the game, turn off your Wi-Fi, exit the game, it will instantly alert Legend of Slime that your Wi-Fi is off or that your game needs to be saved, and it won't let you do anything in terms of gameplay for the glitch. So I don't really recommend this method since it is finicky. Using an emulator is much more ideal, but if emulators are not an option for you to use because you don't have a PC, or your PC just can't handle running an emulator, this is one option that's still available for you. Now, if you're still having troubles figuring out how to do this, there are other methods in our Discord server that cover this. Using emulators I don't recommend to simplify the process. Again, totally up to you which methods you use. At the end of the day, they all get the same result, which is beautiful, perfect traits for us all to enjoy. Anyways, that was it for today's video. Drop a comment if you have any questions or if this guide helped you out at all. Don't forget to leave a like and be subscribed to the channel for everything Legend of Slime. I hope you have a great day. Enjoy.